Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news discussion and, of course, a whole lot of opinions. That part's important in this episode. A lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric. This will totally not be a controversial episode at all. And joining me is Alyx. Hey.
Hello, I'm Feather.
Sometimes she's being pixely. I don't know why, but Discord does whatever.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Hopefully I unpixel because
you have
even though Argent is not here, I'm going to show and tell the Truth Watcher necklace.
Oh, it already came?
Yeah. They
here now.
But Dolly finally has the Truth Watcher symbol and Stoneward.
The
and
Palaya gift.
And also a Cobalt Guard symbol for, you people who like the Cobalt Guard. Yep.
So I still love my Skybreaker symbol, but this is the first time I've had the Truth Watcher one, so I have to rep that one too.
You do. Also, we got Ian. What's up?
Hey, I have opinions. We'll see how this goes.
You often have opinions. I mean, to be fair, we all have opinions on this show. Grace, how's it going? It feels like I haven't seen you in a long time.
Hey, I'm Gatorgirl. I don't think I've been on for like a month. That's probably why.
Yeah, and with it being every other week, we record some in a quick span, and then it's like, oh yeah, I haven't seen you guys in like a month because we saved up.
Yeah.
Shannon, what's up?
Hi, I'm Gray, or Gray Watch if you're on the forums, and oh boy, we have quite a Shardcast.
We do.
Thinking of what we're about to be saying, our prep. Oh man,
and
juicy.
And lastly, not at all confused by daylight savings time, is Matt.
Not confused at all. Comatose on the forums and not confused by daylight savings time, and excited to talk some character theme meta in a controversial topic.
Yeah, so today we're gonna have a totally non-controversial discussion about Moash. Moash is rhythm before spoilers. Yup, that's very important here. So my understanding is that discussions about Moash get heated fairly rapidly. And so we're going to talk about why. We're also going to have a second Moash episode where we talk less about like meta theme and stuff and more about like where do we think those characters will go in book 5 and stuff. So that will be likely the next episode after this. So this one's going to be about theme. And redemption, perhaps, maybe. We'll find out. So
redemption? Question mark.
It will very much be a question mark.
Redemption.
So at the end of Oathbringer, Moash, all in Oathbringer, Moash took hard left turn. Did not join the diagram at all. That didn't happen. So he's joining the Singers, kills Yezrian. And so in this book, there were some interesting. He wears a Bridge-4 uniform, but black. And
very dramatic.
It's pretty dramatic. And he does some really bad things. He tries to get Kaladin to kill himself on multiple occasions. So that's not great. That's like evil. And kills Teft and Fenderana and others. Think he gags Oradin as well. So that's
kicks
not
a toddler. Kicks a toddler.
Kicks a toddler into space.
Okay, that's a joke. He doesn't actually do that. He what does he do? He shoves Gavinor with his foot.
He gently nudges with his foot, and the fandom went eyes wide. You kick Oradin? You kick Oradin?
No, that was Gavinor. That was in Oathbringer.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just mixing up the babies.
Yeah.
So, you kick Gavinor? You kick Gavinor with your foot?
I do want to clarify. I was when I was researching last night,
Yes.
I think his black uniform is just a black military uniform without any patch.
Okay.
But like Bridge 4 just wear like generic military uniforms, so it looks like similar. But it's not like he is going out of his way to make a black version of the Bridge 4 uniform.
Thank you, Grace. Actually, we need this information because there are so many edgy jokes that we can
It's
now no
still
longer
hilarious.
use.
He is.
But I was looking at the descriptions, and it does not say like a black equivalent of the Bridge 4 uniform.
He is pretty edgy though in this book, admittedly. So how about what's been, for those of us who have not been in the fandom discussion super deeply, what has the discussion on Moash been like? Let's explain to the general.
I'm going to
audience of
say
this.
the discussion broadly, fandom wide, not just on 17 Shard, but anywhere you have internet access and a group of Cosmere fans. I would say the discussion has been light on nuance.
I would agree with that statement.
Yeah.
Yes. I understand F Moash is a very common refrain ever since Oathbringer, and that got even more extreme after Rhythm of War.
Yeah. I think like you can see the kind of evolution of the fandom's opinion of Moash. Like book 1, he's just a guy in Bridge 4, and he's kind of like a cool Bridge 4 figure. Book 2, he's obviously, him and Kaladin have that conflict, but I don't think people were super anti-Moash at that point because they could kind of see both sides, and Elhokar hadn't started doing his turnaround yet.
Right.
But then Oathbringer, I think, and it's interesting bringing Elhokar in because Elhokar really got some fandom rehab in Oathbringer,
That
where
is
all
true.
of a sudden fans were like, oh, actually, this king...
Elhokar died! No!
Yeah, and then of course, right as he's about to say the words, Moash kills him, which that's when I, like, the F Moash context is like...
Yeah.
Right around that moment. And the Bridge 4 salute after kind of tipped it over for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Rhythm of War.
Yeah.
It's continued.
Yeah.
I think part of what has like sort of happened around Moash's character is like objectively, he definitely has not done the worst things in the cast.
That's true.
Many of our protagonists have done much, much worse things, but they weren't as personal to the reader. Like, I mean, if we talk about assassinating a monarch, Szeth has killed lots of monarchs. He did many, many assassinations, not just one, and not for any sort of personal reasons either, just because he was told to. You know, I think burning a bunch of innocent people at the Rift is probably more morally wrong than unsuccessfully trying to get your friend to kill himself.
It's hard to rate evil. They're definitely both in the solidly evil camp.
It's kind of like if every life is priceless, then
Dalinar could
it's
kill
sort
one.
of like then Dalinor's killed more pricelessness than
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And I think where this like visceral hatred of Moash really comes from is that the things he's doing are personal to us. Like even like Matt said, like people really didn't have that much of a problem with him trying to kill Elhokar in Wars of Radiance. It wasn't until we liked Elhokar that all of a sudden that's like a bad thing that we really hate.
Right.
Even though it is still killing the exact same person.
For the exact same reasons, honestly.
For the same reasons.
Yeah.
This is the same assassination attempt, just take two.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that the reader has now grown to care about Elhokar, and therefore it hurts us when Moash does this. And, you know,
and how it
readers,
affects
for the most
Kaladin
part,
as well.
really love Kaladin, and therefore somebody trying to get Kaladin to hurt himself in any way is, you know, that feels very visceral to us because we're very close to Kaladin.
Yeah, it's like going off of like Kaladin's issue is like the us versus them divide, where it's like, and it's like he has too much people in the us, like and they're fighting each other. Like he has the breakdown in Oathbringer. So it's just like basically Elhokar transferred from the them to the us, and now we're like, oh, we must protect him. Oh,
There we go. Yep.
And I think it's through Oathbringer, I think things like discourse made like a lot of sense. Like you can still see what Moash is doing and why he's doing it, even if, you know, shoving Gavinor with his foot, not great. The Bridge Force salute, it's like that's salt on the wound there. And we feel for Kaladin, but it's like Moash absolutely has a point. The Alethi system and the slavery stuff, terrible, absolutely terrible. 100%. Yeah. He does have a point, and Elhokar did do bad things. Is that worth killing him? I mean, like, we're not going to get through philosophical struggles, but like you can understand where Moash is coming from there, right? I feel like.
Did any of you watch the show Once Upon a Time?
Yes,
a little bit.
I did.
A little bit. I didn't watch the whole thing.
Yeah. It was a show like I really enjoyed. I liked the beginning of it. I feel was stronger than the last few seasons, but that's beside the point.
As many shows with TV often. Yeah.
But it's like one of like their things during like the first season that they kept saying, because like it explored like the backstories of like a lot of different characters, and it's like their main refrain was like, evil isn't born, it's made, in terms of like how did the evil queen become the evil queen. And it's like that is kind of what we're seeing here. It's like Moash like didn't set out to become the Dark Lord of Destruction. He isn't. He had like legitimate reasons for doing the things he did. It just like led him down this path of like, oh yeah, like in like tiny little doses, like you're doing justified things, but like the aggregate is this is very, very not good, and you're not the person you were when you started this journey.
Yeah.
So further to that, and also on what Alyx was saying about it being more personal, I think also how the reader got to this moment is important for people's reactions. For Dalinar, we see the end result first. We see the results of the redemption arc, or in the late stages of the redemption arc. And we're told he used to be a bad guy, but we're like, but
how bad could it be?
It turns out pretty bad. Real bad. And I think Brandon did that very intentionally, because for how the books are set up, it's important that the audience sympathizes with Dalinar. And if he didn't have 2 books at least of setting up Dalinar up as this good person, the flashbacks in Oathbringer, I think, would have tanked reader relatability to the character. Like it's tough.
It's still totally reasonable if you got through those Dalinar flashbacks and you're like, I can't believe Dalinar's a good person. Totally intellectually consistent viewpoint here. That is totally fine.
Yeah. And so with Moash though, right, we're seeing his descent. We're not seeing his ascent. So with Moash, we see the reverse, where we kind of start him as a good guy. He becomes a bad guy. We feel betrayed. And also we relate to Kaladin very strongly as one of the main characters. And where that personal issue comes in is Kaladin is so betrayed by Moash. And so that's why I think emotionally we see Moash's crimes as so much greater than Dalinar's or Seth's, because of that personal element, and also how Brandon has set up the narrative and his position in relation to the other main characters.
And especially like Oathbringer, he's definitely set up as, you know, a bad guy in the battle, in the siege for Kholinar, but especially in Rhythm of War, Brandon definitely goes hard down you are not supposed to like this character because he is the villain there in a way, right?
I think the comparison to Dalinar is very apt, and There's a really good point made by appropriately Tumblr user Moash, whom I've read lots of your Moash meta, and it's really good. If you're ever wondering like what the pro Moash camp thinks, just like the blog has most of it, even from various people. But talking about how the sort of arc between Dalinar and Moash is very similar in terms of the only thing that's different is which god they went to. And Dalinar couldn't take his guilt and his pain and, didn't go to see the Night Watcher for forgiveness or to become a better person, just wanted the pain to stop and wanted, that to be taken away.
Fair point.
He got lucky that it was Cultivation who was like, I'm willing to do something that's going to help you become a better person and, help, which was not for Dalinar's sake. It was definitely to thwart Odium down the line.
How psyched was Cultivation that she got that in before Odium could?
Yeah.
Pretty psyched, I think.
But talk about stealing someone's thunder.
Yeah, it's people blame Moash so much for like asking Odium to take his guilt and his pain away, but it's like Dalinar did the same thing. It's just Moash went to the bad god who's doing it in a really toxic and bad way. He actually got what he asked for, whereas Dalinar kind of didn't. Dalinar got someone who was more supportive and actually helpful to his journey, and that's why we see that Dalinar got to have the cool become a better person arc, whereas I don't think it's off the table for Moash.
And
if we're just answering the big question, can Moash be redeemed? Like, I definitely think it's possible. And maybe
I want to add that Cultivation actually did take away Dalinar's pain. That is a thing that she did and she succeeded in. And Dalinar lived like a good few years, not in like the Odium haze of like, give me the no feeling drug, but definitely free of that emotional burden.
That's a very great comment. Like, I really like that juxtaposition. And I mean, if you redeem Dalinar, Dalinar did terrible things. So, like, yeah, it's theoretically possible Moash can't be redeemed, I think. But the other thing on the disliking Moash aspect is people who saw Moash's point of view and didn't like how Brandon went with it in Rhythm of War. And I think that's very reasonable because he's pretty far gone in Rhythm of War, right? Like you can't really like see why he's doing what he's doing anymore, right? Because he's just totally given in his guilt. He doesn't want to feel the things. He wants to, get Kaladin to kill himself. And it's like, that's yikes, super yikes. And
it's this warped viewpoint where he sees it as a mercy, that he thinks Kaladin is like in pain and suffering and thinks that this is what a friend would do. And it's like, oh no,
honey.
like I love that in a villainous aspect, but it's horrific, totally horrible, right? So if that is you and you're like, oh, Moash is really in the deep end now, I think that is also completely reasonable, right?
Yeah, and I think one thing I've seen in the debates is the concept of redemption and the concept of accountability. I think sometimes people feel redemption or redemption arcs have an absence of accountability for what someone's done. Like it's letting the bad character off the hook. And some authors, I think, who mishandle redemption arcs, that's definitely the case. Like, and a good example of this, honestly, maybe it'll get better, is Seth. Like, he killed all these people and now, oh wait, he's Dalinar's bodyguard.
I mean, that's true. It's like you're helpful in the battle. But, I agree.
Yeah,
but
hoping that in Seth's book we get more of that kind of interior journey and some more things. But
that will be nice.
I think what Brandon's done well with Dalinar is Dalinar, to some extent, is being held accountable for what happened. I think there's more that can be done there. There was a lot of people who in Rhythm of War were disappointed there wasn't more of a conversation about it coming out about Evie and everything.
I mean, which is also fair.
Yeah, which is also fair. But so
One
yeah, with
offline from
Moash, I
Mink
think
about Herdaz, and it's like, oh yeah, Yoletta kind of did really bad things in Herdaz too.
That was such a good
they?
line from the Mink.
It was a great line.
That was such a good line.
It was kind of all we got.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it's very personal for everyone where they end up on the spectrum of this conversation, because it depends on your own hierarchy of morality, like what's worse, which is a very personal decision that everyone makes individually. And then also what redemption means to you. You know, is it a hard fought journey, or is it just, oh, you're good again and you don't have to be held to account for what you did. So
I definitely think there's a lot of conversation here about what does a character being redeemed actually look like? And I think for some people, they say, I don't want this character to be redeemed, because that means that the narrative says that they're a good person now. And then like they have this whole idea in their head of like, well, if they say that if they're redeemed, then that means that they're not, the narrative, the story is telling me that they're not responsible for what they did anymore. And I don't know, I think like for some people, that's not part of what a redemption arc would actually mean. I think that's a really good point of saying that Dalinar is in the process of being redeemed, or he is being redeemed or has been redeemed, and he's still not off the hook. You know, I think that's an important distinction to make.
Yeah, and like going like off of like what is redemption? Like there's the idea of like people making up for the bad things that they've done, which is a complicated issue, because like even like oh, like he's a good person now. Dalinar still burned an entire city alive.
They're still dead.
Nothing he does is make up for that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's like that's a very difficult like thing to think about. So it's like, because it's like, to paraphrase an episode of Doctor Who, it's a good one. There's where they like go.
Ian coming in with the nerd references here. I love it.
There's an episode with the 11th Doctor, and they go to visit Vincent van Gogh. And it's like a very beautiful episode. And it's like at one point they bring him to the future, show him all of the beautiful like paintings like he painted, and like how he's like so famous. Bring him back, and then they go back, and like the companion is like, oh, like I wonder how many new things like he'll have painted, because like now he knows, like, and like history didn't change, like he still like died young, like, and like a very like tortured soul. And like Doctor makes like a very good point of like a person's life has good things and bad things. And it's like the good things don't outweigh the bad things, but so too the bad things don't make the good things not matter. So it's like, yes, like everybody does good things in their life and does bad things in their life, but it's not like they cancel each other out. Like they are two separate things. So like, yes, like Dalinar will always have murdered a whole bunch of people. Can't get rid of that. But like he's also like the leader of the Knights Radiant, and that's a good thing. And people are complicated.
And if you're a person who thinks Dalinar was not held accountable, like I think he's been held like personally accountable in that Oathbringer climax, but not like overall accountable, because like he wasn't like sent to jail or anything. He's like, hey, I still have my position of power and things. And so like, yeah, if that's you and you don't feel that was sufficient, like I totally valid, completely valid. Because yeah, I mean, I don't think you can't get rid of that debt that Dalinar has in that way.
And jumping off that point, I think there's also a relationship between the concept of redemption and of forgiveness. And so like I think it's fair to say, especially for Kaladin, I think especially in Rhythm of War, you can characterize Moash as an abuser or someone who's exhibiting abusive behaviors to Kaladin, right?
Yes.
And so forgiveness and healing of that relationship might never be appropriate. It might not, right? But the lack or even if there's not potential for forgiveness in a healthy way, I think there can still be potential for redemption outside of that relationship. And I'm not saying the Kaladin Moash friendship has to be one way, but just as an example, because I see that brought up as one very fair criticism for a Moash redemption arc, that it kind of could implicitly excuse what he's done to Kaladin.
Yeah, and this is all sort of making me think about similar to that, and alongside the conversations about how redemption is different from forgiveness, which is different from not being held accountable anymore, and is that I think like a lot of people react to it because in their hearts they know that this is unfair. Not everyone is okay with Dalinar after Oathbringer. There are some readers who now cannot like him anymore, and that's a legitimate thing. It's a legitimate response to what he did. That their view of Dalinar has changed, and it can't go back to the way it was. And and it feels unfair that all that Dalinar has to do is like deal with a little snarkiness from the Mink, or like just have like a one angry scene on screen with Adolin. But I think that kind of gets to the heart of it, is that redemption and forgiveness are unfair. Redemption and forgiveness are not on the table until someone has done something bad. I think what people really want is for the characters to not have done the bad thing in the first place. And that really is like the emotional core of what's going on when people talk about how people don't deserve to be redeemed. No one deserves to be redeemed because by the act of needing to be redeemed, it means that they did something bad enough to require that in the first place. No one actually deserves forgiveness. No one actually deserves redemption. What happened is that they did something bad that in some cases can't be undone. And we have the very unfair action of letting yourself be okay with that. And for some people, forgiveness is not on the table because you can never be okay with that. Both are legitimate, but forgiveness is a deeply unfair thing. It really is.
Yeah.
And so I guess we're at the stage about like Moash redemption. So I think we got to go around, and there are really two questions.
Yeah.
Can Moash be redeemed versus should Moash be redeemed? Those are different things. So, Alyx, what do you think?
I answered, I think, both yes. I think it would be a good direction for the story. I think there's so much of Stormlight Archive that is about people moving past bad things that they've done and learning to live with themselves and learning how to be, honorable in their own way after having done very dishonorable things. And I don't think Moash is further away from that than any of our other characters maybe were. I've seen people say that they think he would be a good Dustbringer if he were to become a Knight Radiant down the line, because I think the Quizra's second oath for Dustbringers was about self-mastery. And, Moash is, when he was at his best in the early books, he was a person with a lot of righteous anger at the things that had been done to him. And I think there is room in the series for righteous anger to be a good thing if it's not, used poorly and corrupted. And I think it's definitely valid that, the things that Moash is doing to Kaladin in Rhythm of War do count as abusive. I think there's also an abusive element with his relationship with Race, that Race is very like panicky and desperate and losing all of his plans and is like holding on to Moash Weiry with this awful iron grip and reassuring him that all of the horrible things that he's done are good actually, and you don't have to feel any of those really bad, like there was a funny there's a funny joke about like, hey, all of that pain that Odium is taking away from Moash, like, what do we think that is? It's guilt. He feels really bad about the things that he's done.
And he doesn't want to feel that guilt at all, right?
Yeah. Someone was like, what do you think that is? His back pain? You think Odium's taking his back pain away from him? No. He comes up against like accountability for a fraction of a second and he breaks down because he can't handle it. Like, that definitely doesn't read to me as someone who's so far gone into evil he could never come back. That seems like someone who's sort of teetering on the brink of, does he really want to commit to this thing that he thinks is taking away his pain, or does he maybe still want to become that person that Renarin showed him?
I do think
idealized self.
I do think some readers got the impression in Rhythm of War that who Moash is on the no emotions drug is like how Moash is by himself, how he is naturally, and it's really not.
Moash is trying to convince himself that he's that person.
That is true.
And he thinks it really hard and repeat. I'm not sorry that I killed Teft. I'm only sorry that like but he is deep down. If Odium wasn't there making him not sorry, he is.
I'm only sorry that I am having these thoughts right now, and that's a man on the verge of a breakdown right there.
So yes, I am in favor of Moash coming back from the brink and possibly being redeemed.
Ian, what do you think?
So, coming from the Wheel of Time, which I have read, and I know Brandon has read. Mm-hmm. At least I hope he's read it.
I'm pretty sure he's read it.
Brandon has read the Wheel of Time.
There's a recurring line in that series that is like, and I'm gonna paraphrase this, is that like, no one can walk so long in the shadow that they cannot return to the light, which is very literal in the terms of Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
But like, as a concept, like, I don't feel like Wheel of Time ever really dug into that in a satisfying way. So like, I really could see Brandon like sending someone into the shadow, like to show that like they can still come to the light. Like, I think that could work for Moash. Part of the entire point of the Stormlight Archive is journey before destination. It's like we all end up at the same point at the end, which is being dead, which I guess is an okay destination. Destination. But like, Moash is not dead yet. Like, he has as much of a chance to like correct his path as Dalinar did. Like, Dalinar is not special, like, in any way. Like he made the tough choice to go talk to the right god to get his emotions taken care of. But like, he did still put in work, and he is actively working it.
Mm-hmm.
Which he didn't for a very long time. Like, we're still like very early on in Moash's fall from grace. Like, Dalinar fell for a whole lot longer before he started walking back up. So it's like, I definitely think Moash can be redeemed. It would be tricky for Brandon to pull off in a satisfying way. I am willing to give Brandon that shot, because if he does it right, it'll be amazing. But, and from a narrative perspective, like, I think redeeming Moash would exemplify like the ideals of the Knights Radiant.
Yeah.
From a personal perspective, I don't like Moash. I think Moash could die in a fire and I would be okay. If Brandon does a good job with redemption, I'd probably be okay with it. But I cannot predict the future.
It's of the enemy. Grace, what are your feels?
I don't think Moash should be redeemed. I think I could possibly see a scenario where I might be okay with it, where like Moash acknowledges he has issues and goes to live somewhere where he doesn't interact with the main cast anymore. I don't see redemption happening involving any kind of Kaladin or Navani, or that these people that he's betrayed or hurt. I think any redemption that I see involving Moash would need to be him separating himself from that and sort of going back to Moash, with the Parchment, just doing work and being a good person, like that sort of beginning of Oathbringer maybe person. I think I am okay saying, like, I think Moash is a bad person. I think where I struggle more with it is sort of if I think Moash is a bad person, like, I also think Dalinar is a bad person. And if Dalinar ends book 5, head of the Radiance, king of Erythru, married to Navani, the love of his life, the best relationship with Renarin he's probably had in his entire life, I might be a little bit upset by that. Like, I don't think Dalinar deserves that ending. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Shannon, tell me thoughts.
Oh, so many thoughts. Do I think he can be redeemed? Yes, I think anyone can be redeemed. I think that what makes someone impossible to be redeemed is if they don't want to be redeemed. And right now that's where Moash is, but that could change at any time. Right now Moash is very much on the I don't want to be redeemed, I'm not doing anything wrong kind of.
That's true.
Kind of path. I think like if he wanted it, then that makes him deserving of it, or because that's how it works for everybody. He's as deserving of redemption as anyone else. Like the moment he asks for it and decides that he wants it. Should Moash be redeemed? Yes, but my reasons for this come back to I want Moash's feelings, like that started all of this, to be validated. Because kind of where we are now, Moash is kind of like the only one we saw of Bridge 4 or like people of his class, like of Dark Eyes, where he's the only one who is angry enough to not to totally divest himself from the Colons and not want to be part of like that system. And I think that's totally legitimate. And kind of we see all the good guys like kind of fall in line and be like, yeah, I guess I have to follow Dalinar. Oh yeah, okay, Dalinar is a good person now, I'll follow that. Like even like the Mink, even though the Mink is like resistant and snarky and like, I don't know about this Dalinar guy, he still kind of falls in line and validates that good guys follow Colons, good guys follow Dalinar. And I just like, I want to see someone who's like a good person, like not do that, because we know the readers have legitimate reasons to resent Dalinar and to not agree that what Dalinar has, his nice good life as the leader of the Knights Radiant, like maybe is like, it grates a little bit. There's some friction there. And I would just be really interested to see the other side, like someone who is treated by the narrative as a good person, or who even just like whose feelings are legitimate and valid, to not want to be part of that.
Because the narrative is framing Moash clearly as a villain, right?
Clearly
yeah.
as a villain. Yeah, and Moash is definitely a villain. I'm mad at the things that he does. He does some pretty bad things, and I still remember like the angry shock of like, what was almost worse for me than killing Teft was him turning around and saying, if he moves, then kill his dad. Like that for me was like almost like that was like the clincher. I was like, that was bad. That was so bad. And then after like that initial shock faded, I was like, man, Brandon really wants us to hate this guy. And then it started to become, it felt a little bit like manufactured. And I'm like, this is like what's the trope known as kick the dog. When the character kicks the dog, it's sort of like, that's like the indication from the writer or creator that this is a villain and you're supposed to dislike him. It's okay to dislike him. And I was like, well, I just wanted to see, it would have been really interesting to see someone like Moash with like similar anger and like refusal to be a part of the system or even want to see the system be taken down, who is like has legitimate reasons for disliking the status quo. And I just want to see someone with this viewpoint be validated by the text. And Moash is currently the only person who has this viewpoint. So it's kind of like the A plus B equals C. Because Moash has this viewpoint, I want to see him be validated by the text. It's a whole complicated thing, but the short answer is yes, I think he should be redeemed because I think that would be the more interesting route for this to go.
I have a quick aside
Okay.
after we get through our answers, but I think we should finish out our answers first.
Okay.
Matt.
20 minutes later.
Yeah.
Remember that thought, Alex.
Ready?
I will.
Well,
It's in here.
All right.
I definitely want to talk more about some of the things Shannon was raising as well.
Well, great,
but,
Matt, because you're
Yeah.
next.
yeah, but after our like more discussion.
Sure.
So for the questions, can Moash be redeemed? I think have a similar view generally as Shannon was expressing, bit of an optimist of the human condition. I do think anyone can be redeemed or improve themselves under the right circumstances. Maybe it's not a status you reach, but I think everyone can make themselves a better person, even if they've done terrible things. Should he be redeemed? I think him being redeemed would be very interesting. It would be Brandon sometimes plays tropes very straight, and other times he subverts them and reverses reader expectations. So I haven't ruled out that he's making us, the reader, hate Moash as much as possible so he can kind of show off and do the turnaround later. But I'm not sure if that's what he's doing here. And one of the things that makes me think maybe Moash won't be redeemed is his role so far in the story as a side character seems to be largely about his impact and role in Kaladin's narrative. And thus far, I think Moash in a lot of ways is representing Kaladin's failure. He's the one, Kaladin couldn't convince to go the right way, or he's a representative of what Kaladin couldn't do to kind of reset or strive to reset the class imbalance. He's a failure of friendship, and Kaladin's all about like making little groups of friends that are tight knit and circle around him. That's like almost like a fatal flaw of Kaladin's, that he makes little friend groups. And Moash is the betrayal and the failure of that Kaladin's method didn't work. So I could see Brandon playing the trope straight, and Moash just continues his slide and dies bad because of what it would mean for Kaladin's arc to have that happen. Personally, though, I do think it would be more interesting if Moash was turned around. And I know I've gone on a bit, but the one last thing I'll say is there's a lot of discussion in fantasy about black and white morality versus gray morality, right? And I find that when people say they want more gray morality, what they actually want is everyone to be kind of bad. Because gray morality, redemption arcs are gray morality. Like, it's that someone is not 100% evil, 100% good. Like, that's gray morality. So I like gray morality. I like both kinds. I like books where it's kind of gritty and everyone's a little bit not great. But I really like books about redemption where people's worst moments don't define them. And I think Brandon likes those themes too. Like Ian was saying, he's not just in the Stormlight Archive, it's kind of front and center, but he's definitely kind of woven that in, and people changing is a big theme for him too in a lot of his books. You have characters doing kind of about turns at dramatic moments. So a long way of saying I think Moash should be redeemed. I'm not sure he will, but I think it would be really cool. And also, like Shannon was saying, I think there could be some cool implications or criticisms of the class issues at play that maybe we'll talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, I definitely think we got that whole topic going on.
I have a quick interjection to support one of the things. Is Brandon talking about Brandon liking this sort of thing? Is Vasher? Vasher started the many war.
Yeah, it's not great.
And he also ended the many war. It's like the whole strife lover versus peacegiver. It's like people couldn't understand how one person could both start the war and also end the war.
He's the hero and the villain of those stories, which is really cool. Not of Warbreaker, but of the legends that are talked about in Warbreaker.
For me, man, there's some interesting points on a path that the story could take that would be quite interesting and nuanced. Can Moash be redeemed? I mean, we redeemed Dalinar. So, I mean, anyone can be redeemed in these stories. You just have to work really hard to make it happen, right?
Yep.
Should Moash be redeemed? I don't know. Moash dealing with his guilt? I do want to see him deal with that guilt. And I don't think he will be redeemed. I think I want some climactic confrontation between Kaladin and Moash, because that did not happen in this book, right? And so I feel like that has to be dealt with. And I could see, I don't know how that's going to work with him blind, but yeah.
I just had that thought about YouTube video of man trashes blind man.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work with the blindness. I don't know where Brandon's going with that.
Maybe not a physical confrontation.
Yeah. But I could see such a confrontation where Moash is still much like we had in Rhythm of War, very much under Odium's gift. And then however that confrontation ends, Kaladin wins, and Moash, before he dies, he the guilt consumes him or something, you deal with that. And so you might be oh man, poor Moash at the end of that, but him still not being redeemed, oh, he's a hero, because you would need more work than the next book. He would need to survive and go into the back half to really be a hero like Dalinar is. So should Moash be redeemed? I think no. I think the books, Brandon's is setting up a clash between Kaladin and Moash. I feel. Now, I do kind of want him to deal with the guilt, though, so that has to be involved. But there's a lot of ways for that to go without necessarily having a redemption per se. So I'm gonna say no, he shouldn't be redeemed. But dealing with his guilt, and maybe we turn fandom opinion around a bit. It's he tried at the end but died. That could be fine. That could be an interesting way for that to go. There's a lot of interesting things, but he's
Darth
definitely
Vadering it.
Yeah,
Redemption via death. Yeah.
I've been definitely thinking about the 2 Star Wars redemption arcs, and one that went well and the other one that really didn't, in my opinion, with Darth Vader versus Kylo Ren. Darth Vader, it's did terrible things, objectively really bad, but did kill the Emperor and save Luke. So it's and then he died. And so we don't have to deal with the accountability, because was he held accountable? I mean, he died. So kinda, yeah. In a respect, does that outweigh all the bad things he did? No. As opposed to, let's say, Kylo Ren, which I felt was very ham-fisted in episode 9. And I did not like that. It's just oh, I'm a good guy now. Oh, thanks. It's oh, great. Great. I'm so glad we put in no effort into this whatsoever.
It kind of reminds me of this is going to be an older reference. So sorry to the Gen Z out there, but Dragon Ball Z, ironically, Z is in there. The character of Vegeta is sometimes this is the trope of the villains don't stop being villains, but they kind of just start hanging out with the protagonists, and then they don't actually atone or anything, but they just kind of end up being good guys because they don't do any of the work. They don't do like atonement stuff, but they just sort of like hang around the heroes and start doing good stuff until like they're sort of always, it's assumed that they're good guys now because they're
by association.
They're hanging out and doing the right things now. But
know who that reminded me of? Who's actually, I think, a good example of it because they do the work, but it kind of starts out with them just hanging out with the good guys.
Yeah.
Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it's often played for comedy.
Vegeta's played for comedy too in some ways.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you kind of have to make it funny. I agree.
Yeah. But then it's also, but like, that's kind of like Seth is just hanging out with the good guys.
I mean, you're not wrong there. It's like, I swore to follow Dalinar, and so by association, now I'm a good guy.
I love him so much, but he really does have so much work to do.
He started the work. You can't look at someone who's taken a couple steps on the path and then be mad they haven't finished the journey yet.
You're not wrong. I'm just like,
they just took 2 steps along the path. Give him some time.
How much are we gonna get in book 5 with Zeph? But you know, but you're not wrong. He started the work. He died and came back. And yeah. Anyway, that's my feelings. Just like Darth Vader done well, Kylo Ren done very poorly. I think those are the Darth Vader is the classic redemption, right? Like
the classic.
Yeah.
I'd say he's the classic redemption and die.
Yeah,
because there's kind of like there's the redemption and die. The reason why I think it's a trope is because it's easy. Because
it is easy. Yes.
They get their moment of redemption and then they're gone, and it's not an inconvenience to like say, what do we do next? Which it's very clean from a story perspective.
Actually, you know what that reminds me of? Hrafen. You know, like
I've been thinking about him as well.
He does get redeemed and then dies, and then they're like, Hrafen wasn't that bad. I mean, we saw him in the entire book, and he did do bad things. But like, you're like, he did want to save people. Like, he wasn't like pure evil like Moash was in Rhythm of War. In many respects,
I do want to support. Like, I think one show has done this trope and admitted that it was the easy way out, and that this is She-Ra, Princesses of Power. In that spoilers for the end of the series. This will just take a minute.
No!
There's this one character, Shadow Weaver, who was like the caretaker for two of our leads, and she was very abusive. She really messed these kids up, and in the end, she was like, I'm going to sacrifice myself for you guys. And it's the only time I've seen someone take on this trope and admit that this is it. It's them being able to escape accountability. Like, that dying at the end of this redemption action is not really redemption. It doesn't actually make anything better. It just sort of is like, and now you have to be nice to me. Like, now you have to think nice of me after I'm gone, because it was kind of the only time I've seen it played that way. Like, you know, like the feelings after she sacrificed herself were complicated because she saved them, but it really didn't make up for all the horrid things she did to them and how she messed them up, and that didn't go away. And now she did this. It's almost as if like her death, her sacrificing herself, was just another thing that she did to drive in like the nail.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
Another manipulation of them and saying, and now you have to like me because I sacrificed myself to save you. You know, yeah, and so it's sort of, I definitely don't think...
It was a good show, guys.
It was a really good show, and that's...
I think I need to put, like, a spoiler flag, and, like, I'll need to put a YouTube chapter.
A bunch of media.
Yeah, well, I mean, Star Wars, I'm okay spoiling that Darth Vader dies. Like, I'm okay with that, but, like, a newer thing, I might put, like, some flags there.
General She-Ra, Princess of Power spoilers, sorry. Yeah. And it was... And it kind of made me...
They were good.
It kind of made me rethink this whole trope of redemption and die, and as a sort of... Yeah, wow. When someone does that, they don't actually have to deal with the ugliness of having to face accountability for what you did. you're not actually working through anything. You didn't actually work to change anything. You just died.
I mean, this is also Snape from Harry Potter. Like,
And now you get
like,
the kids named after you. You did a good thing.
That
right
was not
at
at all
the end.
ham-fisted
Right
at the end of
before
Harry
you
Potter or
died.
anything.
yeah, it's like he was still like a terrible person, but like, oh, he was in love with Harry's mom. Like, it's supposed to make it all better. Like,
But still, yeah, terrible educator.
I'm really interested to reread to see how my adult feelings are about all that.
because it's just like it just like undercuts everything good that he does. It's not because he was doing it for a good reason. It's because like he was in love with Harry's mom. Like that's the only reason he did any of it. Anything.
Yeah.
Like,
I can really see, like with the I did something good and then died. I can totally see a confrontation with Moash and Kaladin. Moash loses. He feels the guilt, and then he's like, I need to sacrifice myself in like a kind of a manipulative way. And it's like, well, that was kind of good, but you're also still kind of the worst. I wouldn't want that with Moash, or at least played straight.
no, I want that exactly to happen, and Kaladin to save him anyway.
Yeah. No, you gotta live
Oh,
with it.
that
You gotta
ooh,
live
that would be
together.
good.
Just
That would
don't
be
get the
good.
easy way out.
That would
sort
be
of a thing.
solid. That would be solid.
Yeah.
I'd be down with that.
Because Moash's whole thing is like he wants to escape the pain,
Yeah.
and like
Mhm.
even the twisted like, oh, death is a mercy because you're escaping the pain could be like he's pushing that onto Kaladin, but it is a reflection of his own
Yeah.
thoughts and his own feelings.
Exactly.
So I could 100% see him trying to do something like that, and Kaladin would save him.
I kind
Is
of
it-
love that, actually. That sounds great.
Okay, so while we're spoiling every media under the sun.
Yeah, great. I can't wait to put what title card in front of this video. Be like, yeah,
Woo!
Adding more things that you can add to YouTube tags.
Yeah. Pull in the She-Ra fandom and the Harry Potter
Like
fandom.
if we talk about She-Ra, you can mention it in the YouTube
that's
tags.
right. I'll put
Hi.
hashtags on all of them.
If you've never heard of the Cosmere before, Moash isn't that important overall, but welcome if this is your introduction. Anyway,
Great start.
I was thinking about this is not necessarily a redemption arc sort of a vibe, but Tokyo Ghoul's main character is like a chronically nice person who's very like self-sacrificing and always just like tries to do that. And there's a moment where he's like trying to do the heroic self-sacrifice play for his friends. And there's this little voice in his head that's like, you've always just kind of wanted to do this. And it's kind of the easy way out. It's harder to keep living and keep going and keep facing all of the awful stuff in life. But it's also sometimes more the right thing to do than just having like the beautiful moment to go out and everybody remembers how great you were because you did the one great thing at the end. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of, it was something that really hit me hard because I also tend to be like a very self-sacrificing person in a lot of ways. Like, oh, I'll just suffer quietly and give myself help other people. And yet it was a story that definitely was like, hey, that's not always the best thing for you to be doing. And it's not always noble to quietly die a beautiful death in service of other people who didn't appreciate it, sort of a vibe. Like,
And with like the suicidal ideation, like
Mhm.
like I've struggled with that, and it's like, yeah, at least for me, it's like, I don't want to experience the pain anymore, and it would be better if I'm not around, right? Like that's what it is. And so, that would be some good. I would be super down if like that sequence happened, Kaladin saved Moash, and then like we throw him in a prison cell. That's fine, but like he didn't get the easy way out, and it's like I do kind of like that. And then we can see him be interesting in Back 5, maybe. That'd be kind of interesting.
To cram in another media
Great.
reference, which is the Wonder Woman movie.
Ooh, it's a good movie.
The first one.
Oh, the first one. Okay, cool. That's the one I've seen.
Yeah. There's a line at the end during the big climactic battle, and it's like the villain of the movie is like, they don't deserve
Right.
they don't deserve you, you standing up for them. And it's Diana has the line about it's not about deserve, it's about what you believe. And so it's does Moash deserve a redemption arc? Well, that's not the point. It's do you think people are good, inherently good? Do you think people can improve? Which and that's the entire theme of Stormlight. So it's not whether Moash deserves to be redeemed. It's are the ideas Stormlight is proposing, do you agree with them?
This is
I
a
think
good Kaladin story here, if that's where this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the reason why we're drawing on so many other medias right now is because it's super interesting to compare how Moash is being handled to these other situations. So I'm also going to bring in other media, but it's one that's I feel has entered the internet fandom lexicon enough that everyone knows about it.
Okay.
One of the most widely praised redemption arcs in kind of fantasy nerd fandom is Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So Zuko in season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think, has a lot of similarities to Moash. He's been very victimized by the system, and he's acting out. He's being very toxic to everyone around him. The thing I think that sets Zuko apart and why people are still rooting for him in some ways from the beginning, which is what they're not doing for Moash necessarily, is from the beginning of Avatar, there's always a bigger bad or worse people than Zuko, right? Mm-hmm. You have Commander Zhao, the Fire Lord. You have worse people. So he's not the worst. And the second thing also is where they start him. Like we were talking about with Dalinar, they start Zuko in many ways at his lowest. Whereas Moash, it's that betrayal again, right? Because because we see the descent, it's harder to get behind Moash.
Sure.
That makes it such an interesting comparison to Dalinar, where we see him. Yeah. We don't. When we start Way of Kings, we don't know that Dalinar has just finished his lowest point and is on his upward trajectory. But actually, when you look at where they start, I think Zuko's redemption arc is actually probably closer to Dalinar. Yeah. Now that if we're drawing comparisons on just the meta structure, really interesting.
Yeah. This actually gives me sort of a good segue back to the thing that I thought of when we were doing the answers.
Which was a segue.
Right, that we talked about the kick the dog moments that Moash has had of Brandon really trying to drive home that you're supposed to hate him and not like him at all, and he's the worst. And someone made a really interesting analytic point on Tumblr about this.
Username?
That Moash gently nudging Gavinor aside was definitely not the worst thing he could have done there. If we really wanted to do the really bad thing,
just stab him.
They're that might have even made more sense if Moash was going for a straight up vengeance sort of mindset of Elhokar took my beloved family members away from me.
True.
I'm going to take his beloved family member away from him right in front of him, sort of a vibe.
Or even more just cold to the goal of ending the monarchy.
Yeah. Right. It definitely could have happened that way. And I don't know if that's necessarily that was Moash's character decision, or just Brandon thought that murdering a child on screen in a very bloody manner would be maybe a little too dark. But maybe, the option was there. And it didn't happen.
I think this Tumblr used Irithilians, right?
It was Irithilians, yes.
Yeah, I've read that.
It was a good friend of both of ours.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting, what that says about Moash's character, is that in his head it was still about justice that wasn't being served. I don't in Moash's head, we can say that this was an act of vengeance, but I think for him it wasn't, because the point about what Moash could have done in the name of vengeance, taking away what from this person, like that is an act of like, that's an eye for an eye properly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I do think it's important to note that that scene is like halfway through Oathbringer. It's before he becomes like the silencer, like chosen of Odium, like before he becomes like the Moash that's in Rhythm of War. Like, I'm very curious to see like how that Moash would have reacted in the exact same situation. Like, would he have just gently nudged Gavinor aside, or would he have done something more drastic?
Yeah.
Going off justice, it's like, wow, yeah. In that, yeah, he was thinking about justice. And I think in Rhythm of War, part of him is still thinking about that. Like, that's part of the motivation of going after Navani, in a sense, right? But like with Kaladin, he thinks that he's doing a mercy and a good thing with Kaladin, even though it is awful.
Yeah.
So like, it's just really, really warped at that same time there.
I think part of that dynamic is that Moash sees Kaladin as trapped. Like, Moash sees Kaladin almost as Kaladin sees Moash. Like, Moash sees Kaladin sell out to the Kolins and be kind of brainwashed by them. And so much so that he's protecting Elokar, who's like,
right.
Originally they bonded over hating Elokar, right?
Yeah, right.
So I think, I wonder sometimes if Moash 2 is like, I'm trying to get Kaladin to confront this, to set him free in Oathbringer. I think then in Rhythm of War, he kind of crosses the line into Kaladin's too far gone.
Right.
Yeah. And there is a lot of like, Kaladin is really being broken down by his pain and not being able to fully deal with it. Moash is not the only person who came to that conclusion. Dalinar did as well, and said, hey, you're not fit to be on, you need to recover, you need to heal.
Worked out great in Rhythm of War. So much healing time.
Yeah. Which I hope Kaladin does like really get some time to heal. And I wish we'd gotten more of the plot with inventing therapy on Roshar. Like, please.
Hey, don't worry. We got to invent therapy for Ishar. It'll go great, I'm sure. Just like the last time.
Yeah. Talking about justice in terms of Elhokar's death, I think that's a very good point about, we've kind of talked around it a little bit, but Moash as an expression of like structural injustice in Alethi society. If the king gets your family members killed, you don't have any legal recourse to get any kind of, there's not going to be any justice served there under the law. He's the king.
The social contract was broken.
Yes. And, I think this is another thing that people who are sort of Moash supporters are in favor of. And I think it's what Gray mentioned specifically, talking about like Moash's problems with Alethi society and the way that Dark Eyes are treated and things like that are very valid feelings for him to have. And there is a righteousness to his early anger. And there is maybe kind of, if we make Moash the irredeemable bad minority who doesn't go along with the Colon ruling class, like good oppressed person Kaladin, who learns that his anger is not good and sometimes light eyes are nice actually, so it's fine.
That has some problematic
overall theme.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah,
and it's not like, it's something you see pop up in Brandon's works. This kind of, he'll critique kind of ruling, like oligarchical or like power. He'll critique power imbalances that are unfair, like in Mistborn and in Stormlight. But there's a bit of an apologist theme as well. Like, you always have like the example of Elend or the Dalinar, Navani, Adolin, Renarin. Like, you always have kind of like the redeeming and like, and it's not, I don't want to critique Brandon too harshly for it, because it's really also a symptom of epic fantasy in general. Epic fantasy is enamored with
monarchy
nobility and
rulers,
kings and rulers and like it's, it's ripe in the genre, like, or rife, like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And you kind of glorify it a bit because you want these like big heroes to be the bad guys. But looking at it from like a class analysis standpoint, I think if you are exploring those themes or those concepts, you do need to be careful about how you treat your characters who are critical or who are outsiders, because you can run into problems. And like Shannon said, I think one of the issues with Moash, I think you can have different extremes, but if Moash is the only character not falling in line, then him also being like the baddest of guys starts to become a problem.
Yeah.
I think this also has to kind of come down to, this is not something Brandon has ever said explicitly. This is something that I've started to infer as I've read a lot of his library, is that this might not be accurate, but this is just a thesis statement. I could write an essay about this probably, but that is not. I just want to be clear that I'm not saying this is for a fact what Brandon believes. This is just something that I think comes across in Brandon's works. And is like the theme of anger is a corrupting force. And I'm not sure that there has been enough room left in there for righteous anger. It's why I'm so interested and excited to get to the Dustbringers, because they seem to have this concept of rage, like maybe even holy rage. And I would like to actually see this happen, but it is kind of significant that we see the good characters have anger, but then they put that aside because they realize that it's changing them into a bad person, and that the one person who doesn't let go of their anger is the person who gets corrupted into being a bad guy, that their anger led them in a bad direction. And I kind of think that's maybe a little bit inappropriate, especially when you look at the different class positions. You can't, we can compare Dalinar and Moash in some ways, but we can't compare everything because they're in different positions in society, and what their anger says about them is different. Moash's anger is actually different from Dalinar's. We can't treat them like it's the same evil force.
It's not the same. It's
not the same. Like there's this, the anger of the oppressed is not evil. And I think it shouldn't be treated as evil. I don't think Brandon explicitly set out with I'm going to make the anger of the oppressed is da 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 da. I don't think he actually intentionally tried out to write this story. It's just kind of one of those unfortunate implications 4 books in, where it wouldn't have occurred to me, like even 1 book ago, to. Maybe 2 books ago would have been properly what I mean here, but we can't see the shape of the story until it happens. And now that we're so far in, it's like, oh, ooh, okay,
it's a little yikes. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So like this is fascinating. As Gray is a very smart person, and I always love listening to her takes. But like the idea of like, I just want to. Slight digression before I get into my main point is like anger is one of the steps towards the dark side. Like fear leads to anger leads to hate leads to suffering, which I think might be a subtle influence on Brandon.
I mean, Star Wars is a very popular thing. It's
but
that's ingrained. Yeah.
The main point of this is odium. Like odium is God's own divine fury, separated from the virtues that give it context. Like that, like yes, we're seeing like the only the angry people, all the angry people are the bad people, is because like the divine anger of the Cosmere has like been separated from like the purpose of that anger, and is just being angry.
And that's kind of the theme of
the problem.
Like with responsibility or not taking responsibility and things like that. Yeah, odium doesn't help the matter.
Nice to see that made explicit, that like this is this sort of idea of like anger being a corrupting influence because something is wrong with this part of the Cosmere. And therefore we have differentiated it of just like anger's bad for everybody everywhere, and you shouldn't be mad about stuff.
Yeah, when the social contract is broken, it like, yeah, righteous anger, totally valid, right?
And there's a difference between anger going up and anger going down, right? Like when like Moash is specifically looking to hurt people who are above him and have more power than him, right? Whereas I think all the people Dalinar hurt had less power than he did.
He was pretty powerful.
Because he was pretty powerful, right? No, it is. I think a way Brandon could turn that around a bit and show passion, anger, especially from a position of an oppressed person, is as he digs more into the singer arc and the singer culture. I think that's like, if he really doesn't want to do that with Moash, he could potentially give a counter example there that might be effective at lessening the unintentional implications that having Moash be the worst is.
And I think the seeds are set up for that with the singers.
Yeah, like, singers have a lot of valid things to be angry about.
They have a lot of things. The Alethi, Odium, we got a lot of things.
Yeah. And when you see characters like Leshwi and Raboniel, and even Venli as she's on her trajectory, there seems to be some room there to he's not portraying the singers as this, they're not Trollocs from Wheel of Time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're not orcs from Lord of the Rings, right? Like, they are a complex people with good and bad people. And there's some really noble members of that group who have had really hard lives, or multiple hard lives.
Just a few.
Who are rightfully on their path, even if they're aligned with a force like Odium.
Also, like, beings like Siana and Baido Mishram. I'm assuming Baido Mishram is very angry where she is.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Like, we've had our theories about, like, her joining the good guys, but, like, her anger at being captured for several millennia, like, can't just be ignored.
Yup. And I find these implications very interesting to discuss, because, like, I don't think that's what Brandon has set it out to do, right? And you can look at those implications and be like, yeah, that is a little, like, yikes in retrospect, right? But also be like, yeah, Moash getting Kaladin to kill himself, evil, right? But, like, it's really because Moash is almost being, like, so evil in Rhythm of War that, like,
comically so far over the edge
that, like,
of villainy.
It makes the other aspect more yikes, right?
A little bit.
The black outfit, like, that's like the cherry. you know, it's like on top of everything.
We just need to give him a name like the Watcher, and then we'll be there.
If you think about, like, you also have to, or like Brandon also has to be careful about.
Hello, Brandon. If you're listening to the show, welcome.
Hi.
I'm sure he's here.
Yeah, not making the problems in Alethi society because bad Light Eyes did things, like, that does tend to be something that has got, like, the Sideuses are bad people, and therefore that's why people got hurt. And Amaram was deep down a bad person in secret, and that's why. And, like, Roshan was a bad person, and that's why. And it's like, actually, our good Light Eyes are causing harm as well by being part of this is a system that has castes, that some people don't get, like, the right to trial or the right to travel. You're not allowed to leave your serfdom if you're a low-level Dark Eyes, like. And we see, like, smidgens of this, like Dalinar being proud of the Alethi caste system when he visits Azir, and it's like, ooh, bad look, dude.
Yeah.
Maybe your caste
and then,
system
like,
is
Hoyd
not
being like,
super...
I love that you're a good despotic ruler. To Dalinar, it's like, that's good that he says that. But,
you're such a cute totalitarian.
And, like, Yasna getting rid of slavery. because
Yeah.
what's Yasna's experience with why slavery is bad? She just knows that it's bad, and she's a good light eyes. So good light eyes help people, and bad light eyes hurt people. And it's like, maybe if she talked to like Kaladin about being a slave, or Zeth
Yasna's
about
known
being
to
a
have very
slave.
reasoned, well-measured conversations with Kaladin.
And I would also like to add, Yasna and Adolin have gone outside of their justice system because they know that they can't get justice or the right way. They have this understanding, like, we won't go into the lesson, but what this was Yasna recognizing in these murderers in Kharbranth, the justice system was not going to fix the problem. She's going to go outside the justice system and fix the problem. Adolin knows there's nothing he can do legally to stop Sadeas. So he's going to stop Sadeas outside the judicial system. When Moash does it, oh, he's the bad guy.
I was just going to bring up Adolin as well. Shocker.
Yeah.
But I find him a very interesting, like, Moash is predominantly a foil for Kaladin, sometimes Dalinar, but I find him a very interesting foil for Adolin as well. In part because they both have those moments, like Moash killing Alucard and Adolin killing Sadeas, I think are actually really similar in motivation. Like, it's them seeing an injustice that they feel they can't correct any other way, taking matters into their own hands and doing it. And of course, Adolin has the power privilege of his position and reader sympathy as, the handsome, charming guy.
And
so
Sadeas.
And Sadeas is the worst.
And Sadeas is like, what if instead of Alucard getting a redemption arc, Sadeas had started getting a redemption arc? You would view Adolin's killing of and like if Adolin had a moment where he said, "This isn't enough," and still offed Sadeas.
This is a good fanfic. Someone write this. Which sounds great to read.
Like, that's basically what Moash did, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like so they're treated differently in the text, differently by fans, and partially it's because of how Brandon set it up, but it's really interesting to compare them.
Yeah.
And then also, like, not to hammer this class message too hard, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but we also have kind of a symbolic, like, Kaladin is like, because Moash is kind of set up as like Kaladin's number 2, or like with Teft, like, and he talks about Moash as being the only member of Bridge 4 who doesn't feel like a subordinate to him, who like speaks to him as an equal.
Wish we gotten some
and they
more of that
kind
on
of go
screen,
from
but yeah.
Yeah, Moash, Kaladin, best friends off with Moash, friends on with Adolin. And before, Kaladin hated Adolin when he was friends with Moash, right? So it's kind of this switch, but it's also Kaladin being brought into the system and becoming like, what's the word?
Class traitor.
No, like,
I don't think that's what he was looking for.
Yeah,
but, I mean, from Moash's perspective, that is true. Yes,
he's becoming kind of obedient,
right?
So to speak. And obviously, I love Adolin and Kaladin's friendship. But
and like Kaladin's rewarded with super awesome magical powers for being in line. And
so he replaces his problematic best friend who like killed the king for injustice with his like totally not problematic best friend who
killed a hybrid for justice.
Yeah.
That guy was bad, and get him, Sadeas.
I do actually want to touch on like the differences because the difference between Alucard and Sadeas, like, even though, like, yes, these two situations are very different. And it goes back to what Shannon was saying about, like, who can be redeemed. Is like, the people who are open to it.
Yeah.
Alucard, like, was trying, like, to be a better person. Sidious was like, I would do everything the exact same way. I'm gonna like just double down on being a terrible person.
And that's certainly why we as readers are like, yeah, screw Sidious. He should be killed. And Alucard's like, no, Alucard. Yeah.
But I just want to say, I don't think Moash even knew any of this about Alucard is the thing. Like,
no, he didn't know
He didn't get to see any of it.
Yeah, that's true.
He doesn't know any of that. Like, we don't know how Moash would react if he had stayed and traveled with Kaladin and gotten to know Alucard in the same way that Kaladin did. We don't know if that would have changed things for him.
That's such a good point. Like 3 people knew that this was happening with Alucard because they were traveling with him in Kholinar.
Yeah.
The
Like,
reader knew.
Moash saw Alucard the same way Adolin saw Sidious.
Yeah.
Like, even though one might have been more accurate than the other, their mental states were very similar.
Yep.
Given the information that they had at the time.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to compare not just Moash, Alucard, and Adolin Sidious, but Kaladin Amaram. And Kaladin being the other sort of Dark Eyes who was very explicitly hurt by Elidai's abusing his station and power in an extremely visceral and personal way. And Kaladin doesn't get to do the extrajudicial, getting his own justice sort of a thing. He kind of thinks about it and is told that it's wrong for him to do that. Syl says it's not right if you were to go and kill Amaram, and he doesn't get to have the fight with Amaram until Amaram has turned into a crazy crystal monster. And even then, I haven't read the end of Oathbringer in a while, but I don't think Kaladin gets the killing blow either.
No.
It's Rock, isn't it?
It's Rock.
With the bow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that's why Rock needs to return home in Rhythm of War.
Yeah, we kind of see okay, the Light Eyes get to do their extrajudicial, go get their own justice, but Kaladin is told no over and over again and doesn't get to have his, sort of revenge. And it's almost like, is that because he's the good Dark Eyes who doesn't do the bad things, and Moash is the bad Dark Eyes who did the bad thing? It's like, questionable themes that are arising here from this plotting that has happened.
Yeah, and that's a reasonable take. I think Brandon's exploring different what it means to do the honorable thing, to the right thing. And for honor Spren, right? That is not right.
Yeah.
But for other Spren, that doesn't need to be true, right? And so
Yasna's fine with her friend. She was like, go for it.
That's true.
You go, girl.
But it is funny bringing up the example of Amaram. It's like, I am fantasy crystal monster, and Moash is like, I am fantasy. My guilt is fantastically removed. That it does kind of remove some of the nuance into what's going on here, I must say, which was why I wasn't super thrilled that the Kaladin Amaram confrontation is like, wow, Amaram's, whoa, this is not where I thought this was going.
It didn't get to just be about Kaladin and Amaram, because Amaram wasn't just Amaram anymore. And he was now a big monster. It's like,
I think what makes this a bigger problem than it could have been, than it should have been, is that we have so few Dark Eyes who get to be Focus Radiance.
That's true.
Because when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, what if we saw Dark Eyes who did this kind of thing, but they were a different order? Oh, wait, we don't have that. That's not on screen at all. And it's sort of like, I'm sure that Brandon would write this, in a satisfactory way, so that like the equal morality would be different if like Kaladin wasn't a Windrunner, or per se, like if he was a different order, the story might have been different. But this is the story that we've been given, and so far we have kind of two examples of Dark Eyes anger at the system, and a story about Dark Eyes being angry at the system, and that's Kaladin and that's Moash. And when we think about, we don't actually have that many more significant characters who could tell a different story. If there had been like a third person, a third Dark Eyes who got a lot of focus, who who wasn't a Windrunner and like maybe would have taken their story in a different direction, I don't think this would be as unfortunate implications as it is. But
yeah, it's like the closest we have to that is Lift, whose story is very, very different from.
Yeah, super different. Yeah, it's not related to that really at all. Yeah.
Lift is not angry at the system. Lift doesn't care about the system.
And Lift is a Light Eyes.
Yeah.
No, she's not.
She started as Dark Eye.
So that was a retcon?
No,
she's not.
her
She's
radiant
not
powers.
Because she had Windle. She was.
Yeah, like she has literal dark eyes, is what I meant. Like she is the closest to being before her sword. Her sword turned her eyes pale. I'm pretty sure her eyes were actually dark brown.
Yeah,
because I think she has darker coloring, like the people of the Reshi Isles.
Yeah. She's natively Reshi.
Yeah.
I know she's natively Reshi, so she's not Voran and isn't like part of the caste system.
Yeah, well, at least for that system, I'm
gonna look at this up. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it would be good to see some singers rebelling against their system and not be played as villains, and like it is. That kind of would have some unfortunate implications, like, oh, well, you're rebelling against the evil odium ruled system, so that makes it okay, right? Like, but I think that would still help, right?
I do think we might be getting that with Venli's section of listeners, and it depends on like, please don't fall in line with the colons. Please don't fall in line with the colons. Like, just do your own thing. Because I think the hard part is part of us wants to see her and the listeners like interact with the others and be friends. But also, I would love it thematically if that didn't happen. If they could just simultaneously be angry at the humans and the colons, and like the good people are not necessarily good for them.
And then. Sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but because I love Relaine Arin.
Oh, we're having this. I was like, my brain is suddenly sparkling with Relaine potential.
If they had an arc where Renarin pulls a Prince Harry and like gives up, and then like
I was totally thinking
they like go and live with the listeners.
That's good. I like it.
Legitimate grievances against the colons, sort of a vibe. Yeah.
It's just interesting that like Stormlight is not real, and Brandon is trying to have a fully fleshed out world. But even though these books are enormous, it is still not fleshed out like enough, and like it can never really be. I know that sounds a bit apologist. If you have these issues with these class dynamics with Moash, I think you're totally legit.
Yeah. Saw would have made a great Radiant.
Hey,
Saw made some
Saw died.
Saw's dead. Unfortunately,
I was like, we'll see Saw get. No, we won't.
No, we won't.
And
but he had some good like, no, this was wrong, and I am allowed to be angry about it fully. About what happened to me and what happened to my daughter and what they did to me.
We have to explore the singers, though, and their anger. And that is still totally on the table. I don't think we're going to get a lot of that in book 5. But
and it seems like something Brandon's interested in. Yeah. I think, I think one of the difficulties that he might have going, like, it's tough to balance. Because in fiction, characters are more than characters. They can represent a lot more than the person they're representing, right?
Right.
And so, like, from a meta perspective, if I'm thinking about how Stormlight is put together, what I see the role Brandon is using Moash for, again, is teaching Kaladin a lesson. Moash is teaching Kaladin a lot. Like, he can't save everyone. He can't get everyone on the same side. Not everyone's just going to. So that's why I think Brandon might have difficulty working a Moash redemption arc if that is how he's using Moash. And if the lesson he needs Moash to teach Kaladin requires Moash's arc to continue in a downward trajectory. But
what narrative role is Moash in? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. Yeah.
I thought I was sure that he was not getting the redemption arc, and then he was blinded, and then I'm like, well, now I don't know what that means. So
yeah, I have no idea. Like Brandon's ending is just like, why? What are we doing? It's like at the end of Oathbringer, it's like you're Vire now. I'm like, I don't know where that's going at all. And apparently here, but like, what is blind Moash gonna do? I have no idea. What's Kaladin's story gonna be in book 5? Like, I don't really know what his character conflicts are going to be. It's so much. I don't know.
I don't know exactly where I think Moash's story is going, but I have this sense that at the end of book 5, we're not going to necessarily like or agree with Moash, but we're going to pity him. I think I have this sense that I think whatever happens to him, we're going to be left, whether he dies or whether he's blind and tries to die and Kaladin saves him or whatever. Like, I think Brandon is going to try to get us to like pity where Moash ends up.
I think him dying and being consumed by guilt, kind of like the Lesian scene we got at the end of this, but it's like a Moash scene like that. Like, we see a viewpoint of him finally ending. He realizes, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done a lot of these things, and then be consumed by the guilt like that. That could be fun.
Yeah, I think if we are going to go the like Moash redemption route, I don't think it would be in book 5. I think we would maybe see. Yeah. This would be like a back 5 sort of development thing.
Yeah, I just don't think saves Moash from dying, like we were saying.
Right. Then you get that like spark of like, oh, he might start trying to work toward becoming a better person.
Like that's the thing.
Scene.
Redemption arcs take work. It's like Zuko took most of like the last Airbender, Darth Vader. It's kind of an extended sequence. Like Kylo Ren, it's shoehorned into the last movie. It's terrible. Going back to Once Upon a Time, which I mentioned at the very beginning, is like the evil queen like eventually becomes a good part of the good team, and it's like, but like it takes like multiple seasons for like that arc to happen, and it works very well in my opinion, but like you need time, you need to put in the work.
Get like a back 5 like Moash Gavinor interaction arc and have that sort of be part of the redemption if he does get redeemed. Like he killed Gavinor's father, and I don't know if Gavinor was like remembers that, but like
I think in Row, he's like,
I want to grow
like
up
a
and
baby who's like wanting to kill Moash.
He's like, I'm going to grow up and learn to fight to like kill the man who killed my father. And he has like, I mean, obviously he's in a very different position from where Moash was, like we talked about with Dalinar, because like Gavinor is a prince and a Light Eyes, but he also has suffered and has a lot of anger for that. And that could be an interesting back half interaction if Moash survives book 5.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see, like, just to clarify, I don't want us to have like the spark at the end of book 5 and then Moash does all of the work during the time skip.
That's
and we
just
come back
what I was worried about. Yeah,
definitely. Like,
I'm worried
I want there
about
to be a spark at the end of book 5 that like makes Moash question whether he maybe wants to try to be a good person. And then it just festers for like 30 years. And we come back to him like totally conflicted and all like,
that's what I was picturing.
And then,
like,
we pick up with the new book and he's like, something new happens and now he's going to do the work.
He's got to step away for like the time skip and he's off doing his own thing and healing and thinking about things. And then he comes back into the picture.
Or we throw him in jail. I don't know.
Or we throw him in jail. He can do that in jail.
Yeah,
you know?
He can totally do that in jail. But yeah, I would be really upset if he does the work off screen. Like that along with Renarin and Relane's relationship, there's a few things I'm worried about progressing too much off screen in the time jump. And those two would kind of be the thing. I don't think Moash is going to survive book 5 though, but it would be interesting if some of these threads are. And Brandon does like making endings with unexpected things. He frequently likes doing that. So
an archetype I'm wondering if Moash is kind of being diverted to. I'm not sure what its like official name is, but like the idea of like kind of the wretched failed villain. An example of this would be like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, or Patton Fane from Wheel of Time, which it's a villain who like fails at their villainous goal and then just becomes this like pitiable, still awful figure, but like Grayson, I think some other people were saying with the blindness, like we're feeling really bad for Moash, but he's just this kind of like wretched one. And it would be cool to see that trope subverted, because usually that does end in death. So
these are all just this is a very interesting discussion. I hope the comments section also finds this a very interesting. Hopefully, I feel like we inserted a lot of nuance into things. I think we did okay. If you don't agree, put your comment below. When you put some engagement in this video, yeah.
And when you comment, just remember it's all opinions, and so communicate your thoughts and opinions, and let's avoid the personal attack.
Yeah. There's not really a way to be right about whether or not you like a character. So
yeah, you can totally read a character and not like
and
them.
If you just want to scream F Moash, that is your right.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, honestly, it's only recent. Like, I'm probably more in the, as I said, like redemption Moash camp now, but like post Oathbringer, I was definitely in F Moash camp. It's only with like thought and like reading like Tumblr and different takes that I've kind of, my viewing of the character has evolved. It's changed. Also, back to the kick the toddler moment. I think a big thing for me is it wasn't clear till the very end of the book that Gavinar had survived.
Yep.
So the gently push Gavinar into an unknown horde of battle could have been like, you know, so
that's
I
true.
built up a lot of upset at Moash based out of my anxiety on whether or not this child was okay. But
he didn't die off. He didn't die on screen, so he's fine.
No,
that's how it works.
So, yeah. But now I think so. Like, that's the thing. These conversations are great too, and dialogues are great because you can change your mind, and your understanding or appreciation for a character can evolve.
It's been very interesting reading these points and just this conversation. I don't like Moash after Rhythm of War. Like, he's horrible. I don't know where the blindness is going, so I'm interested to know. Book to book, Moash has changed a lot, so maybe book 5 we're gonna get a lot of different Moash. I don't know. I don't know. We'll need to find out. Book 5, please.
Yeah, and it's like this gets into like Moash as a character and Moash as a person. Like, as a person, don't like him. As a character, he's kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I love when characters make Kaladin suffer. It's fun to watch. Fun. but I generally like characters in pain, so that's generally amusing to me.
Mood.
Yep. Any other final thoughts? Then we'll go into Who's That Cosmere character? I think this is good.
You have more Moash thoughts to come. But
yes. They will be not about this meta commentary. Next. So great. Why don't we get on to Who's That Cosmere character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Raise.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere character? Caw. And we have the one and true ruler of Who's That Cosmere character and announcing this. Grace, welcome. Hello.
All right, listeners, you know how the game is played. You send an email to wtcc@17thshard.com with 5 clues and the character that those clues correspond to. I read them aloud on air, and after each clue, our panelists have the chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. All right, so this first one was sent in by Evelyn Basham.
Awesome.
Clue 1. This character is famous.
What does it mean to be famous?
Is it Dalinar?
It is not Dalinar.
Is it Wendell?
It is not Wendell.
Ooh, that's a good guess.
Waxilium Ladrian.
Ooh.
It is not Waxilium Ladrian.
Dandos the Oil Sworn.
It's not Dandos the Oil Sworn.
Finn,
It is
Ascendant
not Vin.
warrior.
Clue 2. This character is old.
Oh.
Old.
Teravangian.
Is it-
It is not Teravangian.
Is it Vasher?
It is not Vasher.
He's famous.
Nohadon.
It is not Nohadon.
Is it Ashno of Sages? The Garantark of...
It is not Ashno of Sages.
Wasn't he? No, Ashno was an Amuli guy. He wasn't the Gerontark. That's the ruler of Pabatharnum, I think. Ashno of Sages was an
Most
Amuli
ancient.
guy. Yeah.
Is it All Mother?
It is not Allmother. Clue 3. This character has lost someone dear to them.
That doesn't narrow it down at all.
Okay,
Yep.
totally don't remember if this is valid or not, but is it Slow Swift?
It is not Slow Swift.
Hoyd.
It is not Hoyd.
I mean,
It fits the clues.
yeah, it does. It does. The shoe fits.
I'm running out of people to guess for even the first two.
Yeah.
And then you add the
Famous
third
is
one.
very because are like political figures famous?
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah.
necessarily?
Like
Think
like
of that as,
really,
like, a
what does it mean to
celebrity
be
thing.
famous? I really want to
What
know.
does it mean to be old?
It's true.
The
What did
old
you
thing.
say
It's
again?
like how old? What
How
is
old's
old? These
old?
things-
I
Yeah,
haven't
I
guessed
don't
any shards yet. Shards are pretty famous in the Cosmere.
know. My guess would be Silence Montaigne.
It is not Silence Montaigne.
Yeah, I wouldn't rate her
I-
famous. You know.
I'd say
She's famous
shards.
as the White Fox.
Oh, that's true.
It's true. It's true.
Okay.
I'd say shards aren't famous because lots of people don't know what they are. Actually,
Yeah.
like
They're
most people
often
aren't
worshipped
Cosmere
by
aware.
someone.
Yeah,
It's
in
like
different forms. I'm gonna say
I'm gonna say the Night Watcher Mother. What's her name?
the
Cultivation.
Night Watcher mother.
The Night Watcher. I
The
can never,
Night Watcher.
I can never remember. I always want to say the Night Mother, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
yeah, that's Skyrim. I'm gonna say shoot, I lost it again. Rorschach.
It is not
Ooh.
Rorschach.
Ooh.
Oh man.
Did he
That's a
lose
good
Lufa
guess.
though? We don't know. We have no
Or
idea.
One of his kids.
One of
I
his
don't
kids,
know.
at least.
One of his kids. Yeah.
He could have.
It don't matter. He
He
didn't
could
care.
have lost someone.
I'm gonna switch these last two clues.
Okay.
Oh.
Clue 4. This character is going blind.
Oh, I was gonna guess Tensoon, but I don't think that works anymore.
Is this
Blind.
Rhythm of War or pre-Rhythm of War? That's the question.
When was this
But
sent
Moash
in?
isn't old. Yeah, it's not old.
And not really famous, I don't
He's
think.
not famous. Yeah, I would not
Yeah.
say he's famous.
Is this
famous
Spencer's grandmother?
Out of world.
Wait, what? You're kind of. Our guys are talking over each other.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's Spencer's grand.
It is not Spence's grand.
It's not Cosmere.
Is this famous in world or famous out of world? Which you can't answer.
Grace, nothing.
No response.
I mean, what? Like, would famous out of world just be like any main character? I don't.
No.
Oh,
I'm not sure what famous out of world means. So
Just
if
going
that gives you any
blind.
hint.
Who's
Did
going
someone guessed Vasher already, right?
I did.
I'm gonna say Denth then.
It is not Denth.
Is Denth going blind though?
Oh yeah, shoot, I forgot that one.
That's the
I
thing
know,
that's getting me. Like I was gonna get cultivation, but
I've literally listed all of these clues, and I still forget when I make guesses. It's like,
Sawzed.
It is not Sawzed.
is that everyone?
No, I don't think Eric
have
or Feather have guessed yet.
yeah.
Oh.
See, I wanted to guess cultivation. The Night Watcher mother, the Night Watcher. But that doesn't work. I don't think cultivation's going blind. So, but
Yeah.
all I can think of is Moash going blind. So I'm just like, who else went blind?
I think I have to pass. I don't think I have a guess.
You know what? I'm gonna guess Carr. He was gonna be the head of the Steel Ministry before Marsh killed them all. So I mean, that's maybe famous. I don't know.
Does
It is
Spike's
not
out 3 eyes
Carr.
count as going blind?
I mean, whatever, man.
Clue 5. And you're all, I feel like you're all going to be like, oh, it's so obvious when I say this.
I don't know.
This character paid to have their work destroyed.
Oh, Ash.
No, it's Han Shu-zen.
Yes, it is. Ian.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Ash is old. In my defense.
I would never have come up with a name. It's that artist from Emperor's Soul, right?
That is
Page.
I don't remember anything from Emperor's Soul. I really need to read it.
I know
Feather,
exactly
Badass
who
Cell.
it was. I did not have the name.
See, that's why I switched them, because I was like, oh, if I say this fourth, like someone's going to get it. I have to do that. Like the going blind is way more obscure.
Yeah.
All I remember from Emperor's Soul is there was a dude who did blood stuff, and
You should reread it.
That's what it's called. That's
There
blood
were
stuff.
stamps.
Some magnet
There's a
stuff.
guy who did blood stuff.
Pretty good story.
It's not a bad one.
For the record, for famous out of world, I was thinking Menace.
No.
Because he has become a meme out of world.
That's
In world,
a
he's
ye
not as
old.
famous as-
That's like a pre-video meme at this stage, immortalized just by our jingle. Remember when we used the Pokemon thing for who's that Cosmere character, and I'm pretty sure that made us demonetized for a while, and we had to remove them. I'm not sure if we finished removing them all, but we got partner from YouTube, so I don't care anymore.
We probably got them all.
To
For
our
you.
knowledge, we got them all,
For you
actually speaking.
YouTube people who are watching this.
Yeah, you go look. This is we have over 140 episodes. You can go look at our pre-video stuff where I just edited it in Movie Maker and just put an image across the audio track. High quality video. I can't imagine why those don't get very many views on YouTube.
All right, this next one was sent in by Victoria Thompson. Clue 1.
Victoria.
This character is male.
Thanks.
Kelsier.
It is not
I'll do
Kelsier.
it. Moash.
It is not Moash.
Ash Know of Sages.
It is not Ashno of Stages.
Ashravan. The
It's not Ashfran.
It was tempting
Yeah.
for me to also guess Han Shusen.
Yeah, just like now that we're in that world.
And don't worry, Alyx isn't. She's not on cell.
Not even a little bit.
He's my new favorite person to guess.
Never on cell.
I assume it's not clubs.
I'm waiting for you, Gray, I think. I didn't hear a guess from you if you did guess one.
Clubs?
It is not clubs. Clue 2. This character is a father.
Elhokar.
Oh boy.
It is not Elhokar.
Tanavast.
It is not Tanavast.
Son of Tanvast. It's right there.
Son of Jennifer.
Hammond.
It is not Hammond.
Is it Spook?
It is not Spook.
Spook is dead. That's true. That is accurate.
The Stormfather?
It is not the
Ooh,
Stormfather.
yeah, you gotta have that.
I was like,
after the Brandon
knock that one
episode.
off the list. This is going down some similar paths.
Clue 3. This character is related to a main character.
Oh, great.
I mean, literally every main character has a father.
Is
So
it Gavilar?
It is not Gavilar.
is it King Eventeo?
It is not King Eventeo.
Liren? Oh,
It is
man.
not Liren.
Is it Kai-Ein?
It is not Kaiine.
What if it is Cell? That would be funny.
Oof.
I imagine it's not Dalinar if it's related to a main character, because he is a main character.
Oh.
Aiko's grandfather.
It is not Echo's grandfather.
I have a guess. I don't know.
It's like, is Tamber a main character? Probably
Okay.
not, but whatever, man.
Yeah.
Clue 4. This character cannot use investiture.
Oh, that actually gets rid of my guess.
Yeah, that's very useful.
Ashweather Set.
It is Ashweather
Wow.
Set.
All right.
I was thinking that.
I
I
was-
did that one.
I was laughing at the beginning because you guys guessed Ashno of Sages and then Ash Ravon, and it was Ashweather. I was like, if you just got me
That
Ash
is
a
pretty
little
funny.
bit further.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I was thinking like Mr. Set because
Mr. Sight.
Missed like whatever name set.
Oh,
yeah.
And clue 5 was this character is physically disabled.
That's a good one.
The two I was thinking of before that clue was Jezrien, but then he can use investiture. And then the other one was
He is
Villano,
Oh yeah.
because
That's
Seth's son Villano, like his grandfather would be named Villano, right?
Yeah. But we don't know he can't use investiture. But we do know his dad did use investiture with the Shar's honor.
Yeah.
But wait, how is Ashfather Set related to a main character?
Because he is the father of Alrian, who is the
Who is
ancestor.
the ancestor of Wax. Related, because
okay.
that's
All right.
that's what gave me the.
Okay,
That's what
all
you-
right. All right.
That's what gave me the.
Doesn't Alrion have point of views?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Just
she
like
can
one.
also have point of view,
Hey. Point
I
of
wouldn't say she's
views
the
does not
main
mean the same thing as main character, okay? I wouldn't say an Arrow 1 is like if you said, this is a main character. You would not say Alrion is a main character.
When she gets like like 1 or 2 at the end of effervescent, which I always
Words of
forget about
Radiance.
until I read them and like, oh yeah, I forget about how amazing Alrian is.
I should really reread Well of Ascension. I reread Alloy recently. I'm going through Era 2. And Alloy was good. But I have not reread Era 1 in a long time.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's been a while for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get to that eventually. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Shardcast. You can find us on 17chart.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube. If you want to support our stuff, you can support our Patreon. It is just $1. You can donate more if you want, but it's just $1. And you get outtakes of perhaps questionable quality. I think this time I'm just going to put Matt trying to say words and his internet cutting out. So I don't know if you're going to like that, but it's going to be there on Patreon for a low price. So there you go.
Low quality content for low price.
That's the Shardcast. That's the 17 Shard promise.
A very great discussion on Star Wars.
Yeah.
From our Skyward 3 episode.
Yep.
Where we kind of talk about the issues with the sequel trilogy.
Yep.
She behaved in this one, but there's lots of Dalish outtakes out there from other episodes.
That is true. There are quite a lot of them, and so probably one is worth $1. Maybe. Probably. Anyway, we will see you all next time, where we'll also be talking about more Moash things, actually.
Bye.
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 Caw.